In the Weeds goes below the surface, hosted by us,
the Nicoles.
Behind Larkspur Landscaping in Colorado. We'll explore native plants, pollinators, and the gardens that sustain them.
Welcome in.
Okay. All right. Let's get into it. Let's get in the weeds. Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day, Nicole.
Thank you.
We had a really bad freeze here like 2 weeks ago now, week and a half ago even. No, last weekend.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what is time even?
Yeah.
I lost all my peaches for the season. The tips are all brown. They're mushy. I was really hoping that they would come back. I was like, maybe. I don't know. No, they're gone.
Yeah, I feel like when the weather moves in, we're like, what are you going to cover? Are you covering this? Are you covering it? And there's a couple of things that like, you probably should always cover this early in the season. So like peonies, peaches.
You know, the tree was just too big to put a frost cloth around. And so like food for thought for pruning for next season. You know, when I bought my house 3 years ago, there was like nothing but junipers covering this entire like 4,000 square foot hillside. And up through the juniper, the peach was growing and the plum was growing. And they were like sideways and save me. And once we ripped out all the junipers, we found tons and tons and tons of peach pits underneath. So I know that it is a productive and prolific tree. And the last 3 years we've gotten fruit. But this year, it's just going to be a resting year for the peach. Go peach.
Go peach. I was looking to see online. I was like, I wonder what the Colorado gardening groups are saying. And somebody was covering their peonies with socks.
Did you do that?
I didn't. No.
Yeah.
I was planning to be well, I feel like with these gardens too, and there is something to be said for like microclimates in certain neighborhoods. Like it got down to 23 and I didn't cover anything. And all my peonies, I didn't have any sort of damage at all.
I'm super jealous.
So I think like there's definitely like a microclimate that's protecting the plants.
I mean, I went through and I covered a significant amount of stuff and they still got damaged. I mean, all my peonies are fine. My lilacs were fine. I didn't actually lose any lilac, but the clematis was fine. The one that wasn't covered. I was kind of like choosy, and I know you and we wanted to like test and see like what is hardy, you know, down to 26 degrees.
Horticultural martyrs for you guys out there. I even did a no-no. I bought a bunch of plants at Harlequin's like 3 days before, and I was like, let's see what happens. And I put them in the ground. I was like, gosh, I should know better. And Jacob's Ladder, coral bells. What else did I put in? A penstemon. Santolina, everything survived.
Yeah, the Santolina. I knew it. I was struggling. I wanted to put that in someone's garden this year, and I just wasn't sure about whether or not it was going to be hardy to this zone.
Clearly, it's extremely
specific to the microclimates. Yeah, it's clearly, especially newly planted and everything. So,
yeah,
lavender cotton is another name for that plant.
It's beautiful. I think we're going to use it this year.
Definitely for like softening edges and borders.
Yep.
Cool. So today's podcast is all about design and inspiration and art and a little bit of like design recommendations from both of us.
Yeah.
We have some disagreements on these things, so you'll get a good
a
good range of opinion. How do you go about it for your own garden? And like I know because I've known you for so long, you know, and we've talked about it, kind of what has inspired you and where you pull inspiration from when you're doing designing. Mm-hmm. But what do we get in the weeds about it?
We'll get in the weeds. So a good friend of mine, Bridget, gave me a book for my birthday last year called The Creative Way or The Artist Way. And it's basically this like way to unlock creativity. And so one of their techniques is to take yourself on these like artist dates. And the idea behind it is like you need to kind of take in art around you and you kind of distill it out in your own way. And so every now and then, especially like working on client projects, I'm thinking of the one that we did in South Boulder. She loves everything French. And so I went to a museum and just like took in art, took in paintings and the colors and picked one that I really loved and kind of tried to create a garden around like the feeling of the painting. So I think there's like a lot of different ways that you can approach like inspiration behind planting a garden, right? So they kind of do their own thing.
Yeah.
Like the gardens, the way they like evolve, expand and shrink and things die and things take over and they are their own art piece, which is really cool. So I think this idea of like thinking about different art, I was just thinking there's this garden in Toronto. I don't know if you've heard of this. I think it's called the Music Garden.
No.
And it was a collaboration between, I don't remember the design studio.
We'll put it in the show
We'll
notes.
put it in the show notes. I think she collaborated with Yo-Yo Ma, and it was based on one of the symphonies from Bach. And so each section of the garden tries to evoke like the feeling that the music creates. Like, what a cool concept.
I wonder if people go there and argue like, no, I don't think this is representative of this music piece. Like,
What,
it's a conversation. Yeah, it's
totally.
It's a conversation.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think, you know, inspiration behind a garden is like, I'm not looking and saying like, oh, I want this part of the garden to be purple and I want this part of the garden to be white. I go into my garden, I'm like, I stand there and I'm like, okay, how do I, like, what's my favorite part of the yard? And like, how do I want to feel when I'm there?
You know, I mean, for my garden, I don't want to go into my yard and feel like I'm in Versailles.
Yes.
You know, like I want to be, I think comfortable is a great word to kind of describe, you know, how you want to be in your space.
Yeah.
For sure.
And there's all, like, how do you want to feel? Do you want to feel at peace? Do you want to feel excited? Do you want it to be playful and like evoke a sense of wonder? I don't know. So like with your garden, what do you want? How do you want to feel in your garden?
I mean, I think for me, it's a sense of wonder, like wonder and imagination. And I think seeing it through the eyes of my husband and my little boy, I think that's, you know, we spent some time in the garden this morning and we're just like watching different bees on plants and looking at different insects that were popping up. And I saw a huge jumping spider just like crawling around behind a rock and just creating habitat for me, I think that's a huge piece. So the feeling is just wonder and finding things that are unexpected.
Mm-hmm. And I think with art too, like people think about art in the garden as being this like gigantic sculpture, which it could be.
It could
but
be,
I think like the sense of wonder is like you're walking around and all of a sudden I have this beautiful terracotta planter that was gifted to me. It's kind of like a wall planter and it broke. A squirrel knocked it down.
Squirrels.
And so the face is half broken, but I love it so much. So I just kind of like tucked it in between like the lilacs, and it's such a cool, like when you stumble upon it, it's not obvious, but I think like, you know, that kind of stuff in a garden is like really, I love that. Tchotchkes.
I love the tchotchkes in the garden.
Nicole loves tchotchkes in the garden.
But I mean, like logs can be tchotchkes, stumps. I found also a terracotta, like a cool fish, like terracotta planter in the garbage in Denver after a job. I was like, it wasn't dumpster diving, but I was just driving home and I saw this. I was like, this is cool, you know, and it found a place in the garden. And, you know, I don't think we've quite integrated it into everything yet, but the garden is a kind of an evolution. Like it's always in a state of evolution, at least for my garden.
Yeah.
And I think too, you know, not every client wants to be out in their garden for as many hours as you or I would love to be out in the garden if we had the time. But, you know, back to your point about gardens kind of evolving on their own over time, you know, I maintain the structure in my garden. And I think for people whose gardens we design, I think that's also a conversation point. It's like, do you want this garden to evolve or do you want to really be true to the structure of it over time? And I think that also influences how we design and what we plant, you know?
I think gardens definitely, they reward patience. And it's hard to like not want to just like pop a million things in and have instant gratification, but just knowing that things are going to, you know, like when you put a yarrow in, like it's going to spread and it's going to be beautiful and it's going to kind of become its own being in the garden, and giving a garden space to like become who it's going to be, what it's going to be.
I mean, or you could pow, pow, pow and just
Nicole pow, pow, pows.
And then you could just, you know, split, like divide, transplant, you know, relocate, reimagine different sections of the garden.
Yeah. But I do think, you know, especially since these Mother Day sales are going to start popping off, and it's very easy to go and just buy everything, Insight, anything that you like. And somebody like Nicole can do that because she can create like a beautiful atmosphere. Like we do editing in gardens where like the client will buy a bunch of plants and we will go and play. Well, Nicole is really good at this. She goes and just plays them. And I'm just like, wow, that's, like I really need to sit down with something and think it through. Whereas like you really just see it immediately.
For me, when I'm imagining a garden, I can see the plants in their mature state in my mind, and I can see their movement, and I can see their growth habit, and I can pair them with other things in my mind that also pair with what the client wants and the feelings that the client is trying to evoke. So maybe now is a good time to go where the design process actually starts, because it doesn't begin when we sit down and actually start drawing. It begins well before that, like it starts with the garden consultation or even the phone call. Contacts us. We set up a quick phone call first, because I think it's really important to make sure that the vibe fits, and make
it's
sure
the vibe check.
It is the vibe check.
It's the vibe check.
We are, I wouldn't say that we're not for everybody, but we love to do these kind of fanciful, immersive gardens. And I was challenged last year. I did like a very contemporary Japanese garden, with a lot of ground cover mosaics.
It came out so beautiful.
Yeah, it's super stunning. And I'm really happy that opportunity kind of came our way, because it did push me out of my comfort zone as a designer, and it was atypical for what I'm used to. And it wasn't a lot of, very tall structural plants. It was a lot of evergreens and things that were structural, but everything was, for the most part, like I would say maxed out at like 3 to 4 feet tall. So it wasn't about necessarily creating a ton of layers and layered bloom times and things like that. Although the garden does have that, it's more about the color mosaics.
Yeah, the ground cover mosaics, it really made us fall in love with the
my gosh. Yeah.
Gosh.
I'm putting one in my garden now.
Same.
Just like slowly with like whatever remnants,
Yeah.
I have, and just kind of like piecing it together. But yeah, so but that vibe check was less about like, is your garden within our wheelhouse exactly as we typically do it? Or are you open to this collaborative process? Are you open to kind of like bouncing the ball back and forth until we get to the place that feels right? And that's a lot of what it was with this client. It was like, back and forth.
A lot of trust.
And a lot of real collaboration in even like the choice of stone that we used.
Yeah.
So yeah, in any case, the vibe check comes first. If the vibe fits, then we go and we do a garden consult. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, so the garden consult, we get to your property, we walk the space with you. This is where we're checking like the topography of the land, kind of like what are your drainage issues? Is this a wind tunnel? Like understand like the lighting and just take a look at the overall, I guess, just like the land.
Yeah, like what are the aspects? Are there any focal points in the garden that they want? Like there's one client we have up and coming that has this like very witchy tree in their front yard that they hate and they want to remove.
We want to keep it so bad.
It's cool. Yeah. It's interesting, but I get how, in a landscape that doesn't fit, it feels out of place and it feels non-intentional,
Yep. So after the garden consult, if all things check the box, which it usually does, we do an aesthetic survey with them. And this is where we really get into the weeds on like who they are, what they want. And I think, it's so funny when we do these garden consults, it's like, how do you want to feel in your garden? And a lot of people, I feel like I was looking at our survey results this year and like a lot of people want serene, peace, relaxing. They want lots of textures. They want like lots of sensory, which is so cool because that's the type of garden we love doing, is like these immersive.
Yes.
Like
that's definitely
smelling, touching. Yeah.
That's our comfort zone, I'd say, for sure.
Yeah. And so from there, that's where we start to build out a palette for you, start to build out the types of plants, the color of plants.
And that's where the designing, like, I would say really begins. When I'm on site at a property doing a garden consultation, I'm already visualizing what I think the space could look like. And for me, it's about making sure, like I want to know, does this vision that's in my head, the way that I see what the space could be, does this fit with what the client is imagining? And sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's always the fun in designing, is kind of like unlocking your own mind to the possibilities of the space and also unlocking the client's imagination to what it could be. Because,
Yeah.
I think, visualizing what we're trying to convey for the client can sometimes be difficult for the clients themselves.
Mhm.
They see plants on a palette, they see colors and textures, but they're like, where's the exact positioning of things? Like, I'm not exactly sure, and it kind of, the layers, as we go through the design process, the layers kind of like peel back, and then they get to the final result. And I think through that process, they can imagine much better.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. And I will say, like, if you don't want to work with a designer and you want to go about it on your own, like, let's kind of talk them through like how we would approach that.
Well, you would approach it differently than I would, I think.
Well, so inspiration is one, right?
Sure.
And I think that just getting out there and visiting as many gardens as you can, like we have the Denver Botanic Gardens, that's beautiful. And even when you're traveling, there are botanic gardens all over the country. One that I love, I was at a couple years ago, the Longhouse Reserve in East Hampton. It's where my little boy learned to walk. It was just the best. But this garden, it's like 16 acres, and it's definitely like an artful garden. There are so many cool, Yoko Ono has like a chess sculpture out there.
Oh,
There's
that's
like
cool.
so much cool stuff there.
Yeah.
Even the Highland Gardens with like kind of the Alice in Wonderland-esque
Yes.
sculptures, there's just like so much. So go to gardens and see how they have things laid out. See the colors, like why might you like, take pictures, make sure what do you like about it, and also understanding like what your yard is. Like, is it a full sun south facing yard? Is it morning sun east facing? Is it full shade? Like, not all plants are going to work. So I think getting that inspiration in other gardens and making it your own is like a really great first step of going at it.
Yeah, I agree. The gardens at Chatfield Farms are incredible.
Mhm.
I don't think you've been, but
I have.
You have?
Only in October.
Oh,
So.
yeah. I mean, there's still stuff blooming, but they have some shade gardens there and some pathways that go through kind of like woodsy areas. So for those of you out there that are like, I have a full shade, area, and think that you can't have a colorful, beautiful garden, like, you can. It's possible. You just have to pay close attention to make sure that you're not putting full sun plants in shade, because you'll lose them.
You mentioned paths, which are some of our favorite things to incorporate into a garden because it makes you go out into the garden.
Yes.
And I think that for me, before you even think about the planting, like when we're approaching a design, the first thing that we're putting in is a path for the most part. Structure,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. And we love paths that kind of meander and create like a little bit of a sense of mystery in the garden. And, you don't want a straight path.
You think about the plants that can punctuate these kind of like the curves in a path, or, an outcropping of rocks, or a witchy tree, or, whatever. If you have water flowing through your property, I mean, very lucky for you if you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, definitely go out into your space and look around and think about, as Nicole said, what are the places that you naturally want to be drawn to in your garden and where you want to be sitting. We love large boulders. I have a client I'm working with right now that is not a large boulder fan, and I'm just like,
are you sure?
Yeah. Can I convince you? 3 to 5 boulders could be so amazing here, because it creates a sense of being in nature to me. Yeah. And we work with Triple Stone in between Boulder and Lyons a bunch, and they have some incredible,
such cool,
really cool rocks,
quartz
like
running through,
crystals, and like like ribbons of different colors,
sparkles,
to certain rocks. Yeah,
it's just
I mean, it's really it's wonderful. For sure. Yeah. It's definitely something worth going out and looking at. And also, you don't have to get like an Adirondack chair to sit in your garden. You can sit on a rock. Yeah. And this kind of ties back to this, imagination, this wonder that I like to create in my gardens, because there's so few moments, I think, in life as you get older where you can be childlike, or maybe people don't allow themselves to be childlike as much. In my very first life, I was an English teacher, and for my thesis, I wrote about imagination and like the loss of imagination in the modern world. And it's just, I think for me, going out and sitting on a log, sitting on a rock, like observing in the garden, creating avenues and places through which you can sit and observe what's around you, I think is so special. And that's, when I'm out in the garden with my son, I'm like, let's just watch, like, let's watch. Plants have feelings, like, don't like rip, don't pull, don't tear out of the ground, just like sit and like observe. And he's very gentle with the plants now. And he loves to watch the insects. Although today he was like, this insect ran away from him. I don't know what it was. It looked like a baby praying mantis, but I don't think that it was. And he was like looking, looking around trying to find this thing. And I was like, leave it. Like, let's go look at these other things.
Yeah. Unintentional death by the hands of toddlers.
Do you want to talk about the roly-poly?
Oh gosh.
You're like, no.
I mean, there are roly-polies in my house. One time I pulled a roly-poly out of my pocket. But it's fun for them, right? Like they have, my little boy Sasha has a kind of a magnifying glass that he goes out, he flips every garden rock over and just like, I'm like,
poor guys.
Let's not put it in the sun because the magnifying glass is going to just torch these.
Did you know roly-polies are actually crustaceans?
I did know that.
Yeah. Well, for those of you out there that didn't know that.
Don't know. Yeah. But going back to like a place to sit in the garden, I think it's like a luxury in the garden is like shade and an excellent place to sit. And if you have the two of those, like you're well on your way.
Well said, Nicole. Yeah. So, kind of tying back to how you can go about designing if you don't want to go and get a garden designer. I mean, I think even getting a garden consultation or doing a garden walk with a professional can be helpful if you're someone that has a challenge, kind of opening up your imagination to that. I mean, we have a lot of clients that are completely like, they're very focused and driven people, just not in the avenue of gardens and landscaping, right? And so they want a place as a respite to their everyday, but they don't want to have to be the one to like think about it, imagine it, all of those things. And they have, a challenge doing that. But I love to find inspiration in a nursery, and every time I go to a nursery, I always look for the things that are uncommon, the things that I'm not familiar with. And I always read the tags and then I do my research, right?
Right plant, right place.
Right plant, right place. Understand like how tall is this going to get? How wide is it going to get? What is its preferred, light, type of light? As far as soil goes, it's kind of hit or miss in Colorado. There's a lot of plants that you can buy in nurseries here that like, moist, well-drained soil. That's not a common thing here unless you're putting it in a raised bed, but they can still thrive here. It just depends on the type of plant. So do your research. Or if you want to just go crazy like I do, just go and buy as many of the things that you love. And then once you get them to your property, then do, the research, look at the tags, make sure that you're creating layers in the garden. Don't put all the, early spring bloomers in one place, spread them out through the garden so that you have different points of visual interest throughout the season. As one thing fades, another thing blooms. And
yeah. So, and going back to the design, so, right, like observing things first, finding inspiration, the bones of the garden, the pathways, and like where you want like the boundaries of the garden beds to be, but then also thinking about it, seasons, right? So you want to try and have things that are blooming, snowdrops will bloom in February, hellebores.
Let's talk about the witch hazel. I can't wait to integrate that into a garden this season. I did put it in someone's palette. They didn't choose it, but
sad.
The witch hazel blooms in like December, right?
Early season. I don't know when it is out here, but I think American witch hazel. Yeah. But yeah, so having stuff that blooms from like early until my favorite time in the garden in Colorado is fall, is like September, October. I mean, November last year
just
was
doesn't feel like fall though. It
That's
feels
true.
like late summer.
That's true.
Because it's I mean, we have like full bloom in our like
full bloom
fall gardens.
And so having those seasonal blooms and having like, repetition across the garden, like the Highland City Club gardens, that garden is such a, I think that being in that garden was the first time that I was like, repetition matters, right? Like,
I was going to say the first time you're like, roses matter.
I'm getting there. But the repetition, like bloom times, you'll see seasonal blooms like across the whole space. And it just ties everything together. Like the composition of that garden is just, it's epic. It's
Yeah.
really a beautiful space. But yeah, so thinking about that, like you don't want, this part of your garden has like all the bulbs in it and then there are no bulbs anywhere else and then everything's dead there and things bloom here. Like you got to think about timing.
How do you have any like tips and tricks to help people do that?
Plant hyssop, it blooms forever.
I know. That's a good one.
So walking around your neighborhood, like if you can be patient, I think that's so important with a garden. And so walking around your neighborhood lets you know what's going to do well. Cause like neighborhoods seem to have like similar soil types in my experience. And so if your neighbor has yarrow that's like crushing it or peonies that are doing really well or whatever.
Two things that just like excel in Colorado.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
But you can see what does really well, right? Especially the gardens that you see, the people that have done like the resource central gardens or just have like a really beautiful native plant garden. I mean, native plants are really the way to go. But there's also so many beautiful plants that do really, really well here that are from like, I'm thinking of Delosperma. Isn't that from like Africa?
South Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Mediterranean plants do really well. Lavender.
Ice plant Delosperma.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think just like observing and seeing what's around you that's doing well. But for like seasonal blooms, there's usually a lull in the garden. I would say in like June, right? It's like when gardens are kind of like quiet.
In between.
Yeah. And then there's like the summer crescendo, which is like July, August, September, October, November.
Yeah, that's true.
But for those early season, like flax is beautiful. I'm trying to think of what else.
Is early season.
I would say early season.
I mean, you've got your salvias that bloom early season,
Yeah.
but will rebloom for you in like
cut them
summer.
after your first bloom. Cut them
and cut them hard.
I had
cut them
3
all the way
blooms.
back down to the crown.
I had 3 blooms last year out of my salvia, which was awesome.
Which
poppies are really great for an earlier season.
Yeah, they are. I was gonna say, which variety of salvia has the deep purple stem?
May Night. Oh.
Yeah, gosh, I'll put that in the show notes. That's like such a special one. I don't have it in my garden, and every time I see it in yours, I'm like, it's good. It's a good one. I did know it, and it's in there somewhere, kicking around.
Yeah,
in the weeds in my brain. Let's see, early spring. What's blooming? GMs.
Oh yes.
Oh my God, GMs. They're so incredible.
I have GMs surrounding a Guernsey cream clematis right now, and
yeah,
I just can't. Bruneras are
yeah.
beautiful right now. Sweet woodruff is really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like bloom times are a little funky this year because my lilacs are blooming the same time as things that should not be in bloom.
Comfrey
is gorgeous,
which is just like not really a typical ornamental, like type of flower. It's more of like one of the herb garden flowers, right?
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
The bumblebees are just all over it all the time.
Mm-hmm. And we've just like shouted out a bunch of different types of plants, but I think going back to like the design is don't go crazy with your palette. Like I think, this is where we
and this is why our clients are so lucky to have us both, because we, will challenge each other. And I think some clients tend to err on the, the side of Nicole's opinions, and some clients tend to err on the side of mine. And I think that's how it should be. It's nice to have a partner that has a different perspective. Go on.
But just being thoughtful about like cool colors and warm colors and, clashing colors. Although like in nature, do things clash? I don't know. But like, I don't really love putting like red and yellow together, for example, because to me, it just immediately makes me think of ketchup and mustard.
There is a rose that's called Joseph's Coat that is, it's like a ketchup and mustard type of deal, but it's so gorgeous. It changes colors. Yeah, it is. I mean, you're a rose hater, so like, why am I even mentioning this to you?
It's not true.
I think too, you can go crazy with your palette as long as you're not doing like singles of each plant.
Yes.
Right. If you do like one of each plant and you put like 50 different things, it is going to feel, I think, a little overwhelming.
It's like a zoo.
It's going to be hard to find a rhythm through the garden. Like you're trying to create a flow. And so, go crazy with your palette if you love everything that's there, but try to plant in, 3s or 5s or 7s, even if you have a huge property and you want to do large swaths that transition into other things.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people out there that love red and yellow, or that love, red and pink next to each other. And I think it does happen in nature, and it's beautiful and unexpected when it happens. Like I don't actually think I've ever been out in nature and seen something where I'm like, gross.
And one thing I want to talk about with design too is when we're going through our client surveys, we will ask people like, what was your favorite flower? And like I think of my grandmother. Like my grandmother loved pink roses. Violet. She loved pink roses. My mom, black-eyed Susans, and my mom has gigantic sunflowers and like those zinnias, like those are the things that will always remind me of her. So I think having those milkweeds, my mom has like a gigantic milkweed patch.
Do you hate red and
peonies,
yellow
lilacs?
sunflowers?
I guess like every flower. No, I don't actually, but it's not
combo.
red. It's like a burgundy. It's different.
It is a burgundy.
So I think like those flowers that you remember from your grandmother's garden, or like walking to school and you pass this garden that was like spectacular. Like, do you remember those little lanterns? Are they called Chinese lanterns?
Yeah, they are, I think.
In my grandmother's garden.
That lantern plant or whatever.
I used to always pop them and then lie about it. I was like, I have this guilt to this day. But yeah, thinking about those plants from your childhood that have special meaning to you, I call them like the legacy plants, or like my mom has taken, it was a Rose of Sharon, which we don't plant in Colorado, but it was in my father's front lawn growing up, and she has seeds from that plant and has like planted them at our house upstate New York now. And so my mom, like every time we moved, she would dig up her plants and take them with her.
Yeah, you're savage. You're savage like that.
When Nicole was moving last year, I was like, what do you mean you're not going to dig up all your plants and take them with you?
I designed this garden for when my husband and I, before we were married, I moved in with him and I redesigned his landscape for the sale of the house. And it was really, I drive past that house all the time now because I just want to see how the garden's being tended. And they are caring for the garden, and it is true to structure still. But I took a few plants. I was careful to not destroy the structure. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to leave a place and not take a piece of it with you.
Yeah. Should we talk about like the focal points of gardens, which is like the art in the garden, or like a unique specimen tree, for example, or.
I mean, yeah, like talking about focal points in the garden, I think you had a good start there. It could be the art, it could be a specimen tree. I like to add those, when it's art, I like to add it in at the end. I mean, there's any number of ways you could go about it. Every creative is going to take a different approach. I think at Highland, sometimes from my conversations with Sina and Constance, I think sometimes there's been areas that have been designed around a sculpture, and other times there's been the area that's designed and then the sculpture comes after. In the gardens that we do, for the most part, they're complete scrapes. So there isn't, an art installation that's already there. Typically those go in afterwards. But I find that a lot of our clients are creative in some way and tend to have like cool things that they've, rocks that they've picked up on beaches, or driftwood, or, like sculptures that they found at like flea markets. My son loves little garden gnomes, and he like sits next to them in the garden. He's very little still, but we have them kind of all over the place, and we move them around the garden to create, like, weave a little story about, like what their life is like in the garden. And they're all doing little tasks, like, hammering or like raking. And I think it's great to create a story in the garden, and art, pieces of art do that. As far as specimen trees and things like that, gosh, I could not to just like throw out recommendations, but the contorted filbert is
my gosh, I was just going to say that. Yeah. I'm obsessed with my contorted filbert.
Yeah. Harry Lauder's walking stick is another name for this plant. It's so cool and so interesting. And
if you Google it, you will find an article that says that they don't do great around here. That is not our experience.
No, that's not our experience at all.
There's one in Boulder that
there's a fungus. We haven't seen that.
We haven't seen it. No.
Yeah.
And the catkins that hang from it are amazing.
Yeah. The structural and beautiful. And also you can have like Harry Potter like wands when, like if any of the arms or branches break. Yeah. So that's super cool. And also, I mean, like the desert willow is like a really interesting specimen tree. We don't often plant Japanese maple, but I did do for the Japanese garden that I did last season. And it's stunning.
I have one in my backyard too. And God, because it's just red and green and orange, and like the colors of this tree, like change by the day, it seems like. And it's just so delicate and beautiful. And I have like a carpet of sweet woodruff beneath it, and like the two, it's It's a special tree.
It's nice to be able to go out and see the changes in the garden. We
Admire your trees.
Yeah, I mean, we have a client that was just telling me last season. So her garden got installed like middle of last season. And she was just telling me how excited she is to see like the evolution of, you know, like the Jacob Klein Monarda, you know, and like all of these things kind of like seeking out their homes in the garden and, you know, really, finding their home.
Yeah. So I think also remembering like the spaces in your garden are just important as the spaces that are filled with things. And so practicing, this might be where we're also asked, practicing a little bit of restraint, like giving things like a little bit of
I have restraint.
Room. Sometimes you do. Most of the time.
Yeah. I agree. Some restraint is good. And also like, I don't know, for all of you out there that are, you know, new gardeners or maybe have dabbled in gardening and not found success, and maybe it's put you off of, you know, spending lots of money and seeing things die. A few things to remember: you can always edit. So if you have restraint, as Nicole does, you can always add more. You can always move things, dig things up and move them. The best time to do that is like early spring when they're still sort of dormant. Make sure that you water your plants after you put them in for at least 2 weeks consistently. Stick your finger in the soil, like connect with the earth, feel, is the soil cool and, you know, moist? Is it dry as a bone? Can you not even get your finger in the soil because it's so hard? Probably too dry. What else for just like tips and tricks for people that might want to, you know, dip their toe in doing this by themselves?
Yeah, I think inspiration for me is huge. Like go to the Denver Botanic Garden, look up like Gertrude Jekyll. She's like an old time garden designer, and she turned to gardening, I think in like her 40s or 50s when she started to go blind. She was a painter and then became a gardener after the fact. So cool. But like look at her gardens, look at Claude Monet's gardens, look at any of the beautiful gardens out there. Honestly, like Google Longhouse Reserve and check out their space. Like their sculptures are so, you know, they have very unique things like like a 12-foot tall elephant that's balancing on his trunk, or like red sticks of wood like meandering through like greenery.
So
I mean,
cool.
It's just like very unique different structures that like you could make your own at your house. So I think just gathering inspiration and knowing what speaks to you and like how you want to feel in your space, right? Because the garden it's an extension of your home.
Love that.
Yeah.
Strong finish, Nicole.
All right. Well, happy Earth Day. Do something good for our planet this month.
Or even just step outside and do something good for you. Sit and do some observation in the garden, you know, take a walk, go to the botanical garden.
Take yourself on an artist date.
Oh, so romantic.
An artist date. Yeah.
Go to the nursery. Just check out what's there. Leave your wallet at home.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for getting into the weeds with us. See you next time.
See you next time.